Hi guys, welcome to Hadoop Tutorials. In this tutorial I'll show you how you can install single node Hadoop cluster on a Google Cloud machine. So let's go ahead and create a new instance. This instance has E2 high memory too, because we want to allocate more RAM to the virtual machine. Select Ubuntu as the base image, and I'm keeping version 16.04, and the hard drive should be 50 gig. You can increase, but this is just a testing machine. Once our instance is up and running, we can open SSH terminal. Okay, now we need to add a new user for Hadoop installation. So I'll go ahead and create a new user. Make sure you use sudo command with add user. And we have to give sudo permission to this user. I'm following a guide here that's written in my text file. I'll publish this on my website as well. I can use sudo for changing permission. And now we can change current user to this new user. Go ahead and update the repository. And then we have to install the Java development kit, which is needed for the Hadoop installation. Now the JDK installation is completed. We have to just check the version of Java that's installed. As you can see, it's version 1.8, and this is OpenJDK version. We should find out where Java is installed, because we will need this path later on for installing Hadoop. The way I find out is I can use this command, which Java, and then use bunch of read link command to find out the actual path. This is again another shortcut, so we have to again find the real path. So this is the directory where Java is installed. We don't need the full path, just take a note of this. We will need this path later on. Once Java is installed, you can go ahead and download the Hadoop tar file from Hadoop website. As you can see, the latest version is 3.1.4, and then we need the binary for this. So click on the binary link and then copy this link so we can download this. Create a downloads folder. Use wget to download the link that we copied. Okay, so the file is downloaded. Now we can go ahead and extract this file. it has created this folder Hadoop-3.1.4. We need to move this folder to USR local Hadoop. So go ahead and do that. We have to use sudo for this command because USR local only root can access. Once that's done, we have to add few environment variables in bash rc. These variables are used by Hadoop at the runtime. For example, this Java home is an important one because it's used at many places during the Hadoop services. Same way, the Hadoop home shows where Hadoop base directory is, and then Hadoop configuration directory. This variable shows that path, and the class path for the tools.jar file. It's used by Hadoop at the runtime. So once you save this file, you can resource it, or you can log out and log back in. Okay, so now all the environment variables are reloaded. We can now go ahead with other step, which is to add Java home path in this Hadoop environment file as well. As you can see, this environment variable is reloaded, so now I don't have to type in the full path. I can just use these variables along with the file names. So this is the default template that's provided by Hadoop. So in Hadoop environment, we will add the Java home path at the end. Now we have to set up various Hadoop configuration files. First one is core site.xml, and we have to add the default file system, hostname, and the port. As you can see, I have added 0.0.0.0 as the hostname, and then that's the default file system port. The reason I'm using zeros here is I want to bind this file system to all of the IP addresses of this virtual machine. If you can also do localhost here, but then this will be accessible only by localhost and not the other IPs. So it's safer to do 0.0.0.0. Same way, we will go ahead and do the configuration for yarn site. Again, we have to add a bunch of variables here. And if you see these properties, there is also a host name here. Now over here I have an IP which I could change to 0, so that way we know it can be bound to any host name, like any IP address that is bound to this particular VM instead of a particular IP address. I think I'm missing a less than sign here. So that's yarn site. Same way, we have to do the map reduce site as well. and then we have to also configure HDFS site. And these are the directory where Hadoop data will be stored. So this is for the name node and this is for data node. So once that's done, so we have all the configurations are done, so now we can go ahead and make those directories where Hadoop will store data. So those two directories are created for name node and data node. Now we have to provide the number of masters and number of slaves for this Hadoop ecosystem, but in this case we have only one single node setup, right? So we don't need bunch of masters or the slave nodes. So I'm just going to use localhost here. Same way for slaves file. If you were to use multi-node setup, then the way this works is you have to add those different node IP addresses here, something like this, and then you would save this file, and you will have to go and do the same setup on all these nodes as well. I'm going to remove these two lines for now because I'm doing a single node setup. We have all the configurations ready for Hadoop, but we need to do one more thing in order for the Hadoop to run, because Hadoop usually runs with one particular user, and that's the current user. So we need to set up a passwordless SSH, and the way we do this is we do the SSH keys. So first we need to generate SSH keys, and it's just asking for the files where it will save the private key and the public key. So for now I'm just keeping the default names, and I'm not keeping any passphrase to protect the key. So these keys are generated now. They are in SSH folder, right, these two. And then we have, so this is the public key and that's the private key, and we have to add this public key in authorized key file on this same machine. Okay, so it's now added in this authorized keys file. Now we should try SSHing to localhost and see if it works. As you can see, it has logged me in fine. The other important thing is to try SSH on all possible IP addresses for this particular machine. The way you find is you have to look at the host file, so etc/host, and you can find out all the binding addresses. So you can see this IP6 localhost and IP6 loopback, those are other names. What happens is sometimes Hadoop ends up using those names for some reason, and also you can see this is the local IP address for this machine. So I should try SSHing to all of these to make sure that it works. Right, so that's with the IP address. The other one we saw was this localhost and then loopback. Okay, so once SSH key generation is complete and you're able to log into all the IP addresses, there is one more thing that we need to do is to bind the local host to the IP address of the internal IP address of the machine instead of 127.0.0.1. The reason I'm doing this is some of the Hadoop services, they start on 127.0.0.1 and they are not able to be accessible outside Google Cloud VM, and that causes problem. I mean, you cannot see the status of the yarn resource manager or what's happening. So this is why this step is necessary, and my IP address here is 0.15, so I'm just binding it with localhost. You can possibly do the same thing for these as well, but let's leave them for now. And just make sure the localhost is now pinging to that IP address, which is fine now. Okay, now we can go ahead and format the HDFS node using this command. There is some error in the yarn site, so I'm going to take a look at it. It's probably some tag which is not handed properly, so let's see. Or is this one? So we had a wrong spelling of name here. It's here, so I think it's also missing property. There is an ending tag, but there was no starting tag, so let's hope it works now. And it's good now. So HDFS name node is formatted, so we will now go ahead and try to start the Hadoop services. These are the different commands to start Hadoop services, so I'll also put that on our website. And now we are starting yarn service, which is a resource manager, and then history server. Okay, so all services are started now. We will check the status using GPS command, and as you can see, all these services are running now. So you should see data node, node manager, name node, secondary name node, and job history server, as well as resource manager. Now we can go ahead and check our Hadoop installation by issuing some of the Hadoop commands. So very basic command is to list directory in the root file. So as you can see, it's listing. There is only temp directory for now. So let's go ahead and create a temporary test01 directory. Then we can issue again same command to see if it's created. There you can see it's test01. We will create a test file as well and then upload it in Hadoop cluster. To upload, we can use the put command. And then let's see if it's uploaded. So you can see it's here, And to see the content of the file, you can use the cat command. So Hadoop has very similar commands like Linux. There we go. So you can see the content of the test file. So that concludes our Hadoop installation on single node cluster.